Imagine it's the year 1979. You're at your local Kmart, and you're looking at the Atari 2600 games. What do you see on the shelf? Air-Sea Battle, Street Racer, Surround, Starship, Breakout, Canyon Bomber, and what's this? Superman? Yeah, it really must have stood out back in the day. At the end of 1978, Warner Brothers and DC Comics released a movie that would have an incredibly long legacy and end up becoming a cultural touchstone, Richard Donner's Superman. It rocketed the already incredibly well-known superhero back into the public consciousness in a brand new way, and led Christopher Reeve to be the face of the Man of Steel for a new generation of fans. This, of course, got Warner thinking about how to best capitalize on the renewed love of the character. Merchandise and a sequel were the obvious choices, but they also turned to a certain successful video game company they just so happened to own, Atari. Having already created a large install base with their VCS console, putting one of the hottest IP on the system felt like a no-brainer. Upon receiving a request from Warner, Atari began looking at a prototype that a programmer named Warren Robinett had been working on. This prototype would end up becoming the legendary 2600 game Adventure, a fantasy-themed game that Robinett had been struggling to get any support for internally. After multiple meetings, another programmer, John Dunn, ended up taking on this project with his one stipulation being that he wanted a 4 kilobyte cartridge instead of the usual 2 kilobyte. He was then given the source code to Robinett's prototype and immediately began working on the 2600's very first single-player adventure game. The game begins with Superman flying down to a phone booth and changing into Clark Kent. As soon as you gain control of Kent, you move to the right and...
Okay, something happened. Something evil happened, I guess. Oh god.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
So if you couldn't tell, what actually just happened there was Lex Luthor and his gang blew up the Metropolis Memorial Bridge, and it's up to Superman to save the day. Your actual goals here are to find the 3 broken pieces of the bridge, catch Lex and his goons and put them behind bars, and finally write the story as Clark Kent. Pretty ambitious sounding game for 1979, right? As Superman, you have several superpowers to help you accomplish these tasks. Flight is the most obvious one, and this is your main form of traversal throughout Metropolis. Pushing up on the joystick will cause you to start flying, and then you can move in any direction from there. Oh, and I do mean any direction, including down, as in through the floor. You also have super strength, which in this game translates to being able to pick up any object. Villains, parts of the bridge, Lois Lane, a random helicopter, whatever. You do have to be flying to carry them, though. Releasing the joystick will make Superman drop back down to the street and set down any object he was carrying. The final ability at your disposal is X-ray vision. Holding down the button activates his X-ray vision, and then pressing and holding one of the 4 immediate directions on the joystick allow you to get a preview of what's on that screen. That's actually a pretty clever idea, all things considered. It can also be quite useful due to the game's more confusing navigation elements, though I'll touch on that in a moment. Once you do stumble across either Lex Luthor, the flying one in the dorky helipack, or one of his gang members, you'll need to carry them to the Metropolis prison. There are even markers on the HUD at the top left of the screen showing how many more villains you have left to capture. Again, a pretty advanced feature for this era. While you're out collecting bad guys and bridge parts, there are a couple of obstacles that will get in your way. Since you are Superman and pretty much invincible, the threats here really boil down to minor inconveniences. The main one comes from what the manual calls kryptonite satellites. Since Lex is the villain of this game, you'd expect him to be the one controlling them, but no such connection is made in the instructions, and even capturing his entire gang won't make them go away. They even chase you down as Clark Kent, meaning that whoever is controlling these knows Superman's secret identity. Seriously, who's behind these things? Touching one of the kryptonite satellites causes you to lose your powers, i.e. no flying or X-ray vision. The only way to get them back is to find and touch Lois Lane. Yeah, because that's how it works in the comics. Now, this might sound like a bit of a challenge, having to track her down somewhere in the city, but don't worry. The second you make contact with the kryptonite, Lois appears out of thin air, like she was just waiting off-screen for Superman to screw up. Don't get me wrong, it's nice not to have to hoof it around Metropolis until you get lucky and your paths cross, but it also feels a bit odd. The game basically creates a problem and then immediately gives you the solution. It's like, oh, watch out for the kryptonite, oh no, you messed up, oh never mind, here's Lois. Sometimes it happens so quickly, I hardly notice anything even occurred. And then there's the helicopter. This thing appears randomly throughout the game and instantly demands your attention, not just with its visual presence, but also with the immense amount of noise that accompanies it. Its actual purpose is something of a mystery, though. It will occasionally be carrying away a piece of the bridge, or even Lois for some reason, but most often it's just kinda there. It doesn't do anything to you, and in fact you can pick it up and fly it around the city if you so choose. Weird. But the most challenging element of the game comes not from Luthor or the Kryptonite, but rather navigation. As I mentioned previously, you can fly left, right, up, or even down through the floor as you explore the city. What screen you end up on, though, is a bit more complicated, and even after doing 3 playthroughs for this video, I still hadn't quite figured it out. The whole thing is difficult to explain, but it's like there's a long horizontal stretch of screens that leads back to the starting area, and going to the left or right along this line will predictably lead you to the same group of screens. It's almost like you're flying around the entire Earth and coming back to the same point. Huh. If you keep moving vertically, you go through the same screens as the horizontal line, but in a different order. This alone would be confusing enough, but then there's the doors. I originally thought these were doors that led into some of the random buildings throughout the city, but they're actually supposed to be subways. Considering that this is what the inside of the Daily Planet building looks like, can you really blame me? Once you've entered a subway, flying upward will take you into an infinite loop of the 4 different colored subway cars, but going down takes you back out to the street, though in a completely different part of the city from where you entered. This is also true even if you were just entering a subway unintentionally and tried to immediately head back out because there was something you needed on the former screen. You can exit the subway to the left or right as well, but they'll take you to 2 completely different and also seemingly random screens compared to going down. You can even find yourself back in the subway system if you fly into the Daily Planet building and then try and leave it in any of the 4 directions. I mean, just look at this. This is the most disorienting map I've ever encountered in a game, especially since very few of its screens look distinct.
So just going like this. Okay, there we go. No. What? Okay. I was like, okay, I thought I had gotten there. No, don't want to go in the building. Okay, there we go. Get out of here.
Oh, there
it is.
There it is. Yeah, don't dare go to any other screen because it'll take you like halfway across the city.
But I can take it. Wait, what was that? I went right back to the right. It just took me to a different screen.
I don't want to sound so harsh on the game's map system given its age, but considering Adventure would end up releasing less than a year later and wasn't nearly this confusing to navigate, it's sort of hard to ignore. And really, why is Superman, of all people, even riding the subway at all? Once the bridge is rebuilt and Lex and Co. are behind bars, you need to fly back to the phone booth and change into Clark Kent, with the goal being to make it back to the Daily Planet and write your article. It's a pretty neat idea, and it feels like Dunn was really leaning into the full Superman experience. Though, having to slowly wander your way through the city to even find the darn building isn't exactly fun.
Just walk across the bridge?
Oh, you can. Can I go to work as Clark? You can. I don't know what this is. Like, why do I go down and then I'm here and then I can't go back up? Like, I don't understand.
It's all worth it, though, to see that amazing ending screen. Seriously, you weren't expecting anything else, right? With no fail state or points-based scoring system, what's here to keep you returning to the game? Well, you may have noticed the timer in the top right corner of the screen. It counts upward and stops the moment you return to the office as Clark, meaning that your goal is not just to complete the game, but to do it as fast as you can. There's no penalty for taking too long, it's really just there for you to try and beat your past times. Superman's basically invulnerable, an element most other Superman titles struggle to adapt to game form, so it's interesting to see the very first one just lean into it. While I do think that the negative effects of Kryptonite should be a bit more punishing, and the map traversal is, well, something else, I do feel that this was probably not far off of the best possible outcome for a Superman game on the 2600. If nothing else, it's definitely a very interesting adaptation of the character and concept. Superman's future in the gaming space would really be mostly downhill and almost expectedly bad from this point onward, so it's nice to see at least a brief period where Superman plus video game didn't instantly equal bad in the minds of the gaming audience.